Welcome to Law for Life with Georgia.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of Law for Life with Georgia Konstantakis, where attorney Georgia Konstantakis brings her nearly 3 decades of Wisconsin experience to help her community stay informed, protected, and prepared for whatever life brings. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the moments right after a car accident. From the first few minutes at the scene to the days that follow, Georgia's going to walk us through what to do, especially what not to do, and how to protect yourself if things get a little complicated later on. Georgia, it's good to see you as always. Let me ask you first at the high level here, because you've handled a bunch of cases over the years. When someone's just been in an accident, what's the very first few things that they should focus on in those first early minutes?
Good question. Well, thanks for having me, Mike. The first and foremost is to get to safety. I can't tell you enough times how many clients have exacerbated their injuries because they didn't get to safety. So really important, right after an accident happens, pull over, move to a safe spot somewhere. If you need to get out of your vehicle right away, it's smoking, whatever the case might be, it's really important to get to safety. So that is the first and foremost. And then thereafter, a lot of my clients will take pictures of their car accident, the location of the vehicles, what their injuries were. We get a lot of that on the early front part of it. But the biggest thing is getting to safety, making sure everybody's okay in that regard. And if they're not okay, trying to help them in any way you can. Unfortunately, here in Wisconsin, we have really bad winters, and there's just constant accidents happening on the daily. In fact, just yesterday, a snowplow hit an SUV, and unfortunately, the driver did not make it. It was a very unfortunate incident. But yes, so the first thing is making sure you take your vehicle to safety. And then thereafter, it would be to assess the situation, determining who's at fault. That's critical in a situation like this. Sometimes people don't take the blame. They'll pretend as though they're not the person at fault, and they will deflect and make it seem like the other driver is at fault. And I have situations where that does happen because say the driver doesn't speak the language. So, they get taken advantage of in that regard. But it's really important to call the cops immediately so that you can get a third eye on it.
So they've called the cops now, and we've talked about getting to safety, obviously. So what other kind of information, you mentioned about photos, but what other kind of info is worth collecting before you even leave the scene?
Oh, definitely pictures, are 1,000 words. It's video, pictures, any type of evidence, exchange of information. Sometimes you have individuals that'll leave the scene. And in a situation like that, it's a hit and run. And unfortunately, if that does happen, really important to take down plate information and making sure that that individual isn't going to be a flight risk, because that has happened in the past. The person will stop and then they panic because they might be under the influence or under some sort of drugs. So they'll just take off if they hear that the cops are coming. Yeah. Really important to exchange information, and also checking out what witnesses are around. Sometimes you've got third-party witnesses that could really help your case. So it's important to collect those names, phone numbers. And I know it's easier said than done, because when you're in an accident, you are discombobulated and you might be severely injured. So it's difficult to do. But if you can, and if it's maybe not as hard of a hit, it's important to collect as much information as possible. Half the time, you've got a situation where you're at a stoplight and someone just crashes right into you. Obviously that's 100% liability on the person that hit you from behind, but you have these T-bone type of accidents where you can't really determine liability until you do a reenactment of the accident. And sometimes it takes hiring experts.
Georgia, let me ask you, staying on the severely injured, let's hope that people aren't severely injured, but even if they have the most minor of injuries, how soon should they be getting checked out, even if they feel completely fine?
It's immediate. Insurance companies love to deny claims based on the fact that, well, this person didn't go in and get treated until 2 weeks after the accident. How do we know that this accident is what caused their injuries? There's this factor of causation in legal terms. So what we like to do is encourage people, anytime you're involved in a car crash, go immediately and get checked out, regardless of whether you think you're okay, because I'll guarantee you the next day you will be feeling pretty lousy.
Speaking of the insurance companies, you fed right into the follow up. People get the calls, they get the adjuster stuff, then they start saying the wrong things. When is it okay to talk to the adjuster, or when should they wait?
Okay, so good question. What I say at all times is lawyer up. Immediately, as soon as a car accident happens, and it's not your fault, that is the key. It cannot be your fault. If it's your fault, then you'd probably be defending on a ticket. But if it's not your fault and the other driver was at fault and caused the accident, in those situations, get an attorney immediately. Our office is skilled at making sure that we get all the facts up front at the jump. I can't tell you how many times people forget or they just bury or can't remember what happened in the accident. So it's super important to hire our firm to handle an immediate car accident, and then we will communicate with the insurance company. We always advise our clients, do not talk to the at-fault carrier. And in the state of Wisconsin, you are required to speak to your own insurance company. So sometimes there will be a recorded statement. If that does happen, I'm always at that recorded statement session. I do not let my clients do those without me.
Georgia, let me ask you, is that the biggest mistake you've seen people make, or are there other ones? Like, is talking to the adjuster, saying the wrong things? What are some of the other mistakes that people make in those first early days?
A lot of times we'll get a case after the person has already spoken to the insurance company and basically minimized their injuries and made it seem like, oh, I'm fine. And then, a week down the road, they start to get, whatever the case might be, they might have back injury. That's a big one, or neck injury, or some sort of concussion, and they're just minimizing what happened to them in those situations. We try to damage control. And insurance companies love talking to the victim, obviously, and getting a statement from them. And if we do end up having the insurance company taking a statement, obviously we haven't been involved, but if we do, then we ask for a copy of the recorded statement.
George, you mentioned some of the Wisconsin law there. I want to dive a little bit more into it. How much time does someone have to file a claim in the state of Wisconsin?
Good question. It is 3 years. 3 years to actually file the lawsuit. I've had a ton of people come to me after the fact, and it's just not possible. You have to lock in and file. And I say 3 years, but honestly, within 2 years, you really should be, the ball should be rolling, because there's this period of time where you could try to settle the case versus going to trial. And if you end up going to trial, you have to file a lawsuit, a summons and complaint with the court prior to the 3 year statute of limitations.
Let me ask you on that. Let's expand on that. What kind of records or evidence tend to make the biggest difference that you've seen, whether it be on the settlement front or if it goes to court?
As far as evidence goes, what we like to do is obviously collect all our facts ahead of time. So when we're putting together our demand, we're making sure that we have a summary statement of what happened in the accident, what our client's account of the accident is. Usually, the insurance company will determine liability immediately. So we'll know if there's any type of comparative negligence involved. And sometimes there is. You have a situation where if you were making a left-hand turn, you have, there's the lookout. That's a huge one that the insurance company uses, that, you failed to look out. You did not see the other car driving, and therefore you should have stopped, broke to try to prevent the accident from happening. So sometimes that does, creep up for us, as the insurance companies like to use that as a defense. So.
Georgia, let me ask you, given all of your experience in this, can you share maybe a story with the audience, maybe a client example without going into too much detail, that shows how that client did things right early on and it helped their case overall?
Sure. So the optimal client is obviously the one that's calling me at the scene. So, generally speaking, and I've actually had a situation where that did happen very recently. We just took on a client who was involved in a car crash almost hours after the accident and contacted us. And that is an optimal client for me, because at that point, I control what happens, and how we lay everything out in the situation. I always say to clients, though, if you're not injured, you can't build a case out of nothing. And insurance companies smell that. So if you've got prior injuries, that's something that obviously insurance companies love to use as a defense. Well, they had a prior back injury, they had a prior neck injury, they had a prior left hip injury. But there's this term called exacerbated injuries, where your injuries are exacerbated. So the existing condition is exacerbated by what happened in the accident. So yes, you may have a hip issue, but now it's even worse because of this accident. So that's something that we like to hone in on early on, and make sure that we lay the cards out on the table. We're not trying to lie and say that, oh, this hip injury is because of this accident. No, that's not the case. But what we are doing is saying that this car accident exacerbated the existing injury. So, but in answering your question, what I like to do is, make sure that the client is in tune with what's happening. And do not talk to the insurance company. They're not your friends. They're looking to try to settle the case immediately. I've had clients who've been offered peanuts on the dollar to settle their cases, and unfortunately, you have those situations where they're short on money, so they'll take whatever the insurance company's giving them, and they are selling themselves short.
Georgia, as we put a bow on this, I think everyone heard you call a lawyer, but someone's listening to this right now. They just got into a car accident. They feel a little overwhelmed. What would be the best piece of advice you would give them, or the smartest next step that they should make sure that all their rights are protected?
So making sure that, well, directly after the accident happens, hiring the lawyer, and then having us work on the case. There's no reason that you should be stressing out over the accident. You've got to get well. Your goal is to make sure that you are focused on your injuries and making sure that you fix those, ailments, whatever it is that's hurting you, get it fixed. A common misperception is, people think that, oh, well, I went to the doctor, but the doctor didn't really diagnose me with what I'm feeling. If that's the situation, and if that's the case, you got to switch doctors. And so that's something that I advise my clients. If that doctor is not focused and minimizing your damages, making it seem like, oh, this is a soft tissue case, don't worry about it, find another doctor, find someone who's going to listen to you and your injuries and the fact that it hurts and you want to make it better.
Yeah.
So,
Georgia, thank you so much for the time and insights on this. I truly appreciate it, as always.
yes, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
And thank you to everyone out there for listening to this installment of Law for Life with Georgia. To learn more about Georgia and the team over at Konstantakis and Konstantakis Law Office, LLC, do me a favor, visit konstantakislaw.com today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review and comment, or share the episode with someone who may need to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.